Security is extremely important these days. It's being used everywhere, from IoT devices to the cloud. And the problem is that we have something called quantum computers sneaking up on us. Bart, what are some of the challenges that people are going to be encountering now that we have sort of a different ways of attacking our security systems?
Well, Bill, the answer could be very long-winded, but to keep it short, the methodologies we are using today, and let's call them classical crypto right now, although it doesn't mean that we can't use them anymore going forward. These classical algorithms that we're using for setting up keys and exchanging keys, they rely on basically mathematics that are easy to do one way, which we call the use of the algorithm, but are extremely hard mathematically to do the reverse, which would be breaking it, if you will. However, with quantum computers getting more powerful by the year, in the foreseeable future, these quantum computers using specific quantum algorithms that are already well established could break what would take millions of years today, potentially in hours. What that means is that all the mechanisms that we are using today, that you are using, that we are using in this video call, that you're using while browsing, they rely on that mathematics to be hard to break. So when the quantum computers become more powerful, and the question is, when will that be? We need to be prepared. And one could say, well, this takes 10 more years, 15 more years, who knows? So I'll wait 10 years and then start making my chips. But there is also the concept of store now, analyze later. So maybe data or valuable information that needs to survive 10, 15 years, 20 years, well, then you should start preparing that with different, encrypt that under different methodologies right now. So that's in a nutshell why this is important to think about.
Well, obviously, quantum computers are taking a different tact and can do amazing things, but how are we coming up with different algorithms that are still going to be implemented on our existing kind of level of hardware that will actually prevent something like a quantum computer from breaking our codes?
Exactly, and that's what we in the industry, but also the academics and the national and standardization bodies have been starting since, well, what is it now, 9 years ago, or maybe 7 years ago, 2016. That's when basically NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies in the US, started, let's say, inviting the community, say, okay, please come up with algorithms that are still to be run on classical computers. So we're not talking about quantum crypto. We talk about post-quantum crypto, if you will. And this is a lot of fuzzy terminology, but in the end of the day, I mean algorithms that are mathematical that can run on the existing computers today. We don't need quantum computers for that, but are drafted in a way that are able to withstand these massive parallelization aspects of quantum computers. So we've now analyzed in the community, okay, the public key mechanisms that we're using today, which we use for exchanging keys and generating keys, they rely on the mathematics that are at risk, so we need to replace them. So NIST has started this initiative, and in the last 7 years, we are now come to a first conclusion that there are 2 major new algorithms presented, actually 4, but 2 of them are now recognized, or actually 3, which have funky names like Kyber and Dilithium and Sphinx, all nice names, but they rely on different methodologies, not so much the aspect of factorization of large multiplied primes, but more of so-called lattice-based designs, lattice-based calculation, if you will. What has to be done now is that, of course, it needs to be done much more crypto analysis. Okay, can it really withstand? It already has undergone a lot of analysis. And the good thing about these public initiatives is that globally, the whole world really has their say on it. They can analyze it. There are no secrets in there except for, let's say, the key. That means that we want to be prepared for having good algorithms available that then we as Rambus, for example, start to implement in silicon.
Now, it sounds as if we're still a little early in terms of locking things down. Are those algorithms of a sort that I could generate hardware that would handle either one of them or whatever is finally decided? Or is this something that is going to require me to wait until those standards exist before we start dropping it into hardware?
So we've decided to go for it and start dropping it in hardware, albeit with mechanisms that can allow us to, in a secure way, update certain, let's say, parameters. Because that's what we've seen over time when initially the algorithms were presented, they have been analyzed, they have already seen tweaks that make them either more efficient, less power hungry, or a bit more secure. But we've seen that the let's say the acceleration part, that's why one would need the hardware as well as the security part. We're pretty confident that we can build it in silicon with the programmability that allows us to tweak the parameters in a secure way.
Is this an algorithm that is going to essentially require a hardware acceleration, or is it a matter of hardware acceleration to do it efficiently? In particular, what I'm getting at is this a software algorithm that we could potentially download onto our existing micros that may run more slowly, but would still give us the level of security that we're looking for?
I think that last sentence makes it the big difference in how I answer this, because one could say, yes, this can be done in software. The key space is going to be much larger than what we're used to currently. So one would think of these are going to be doing like tens of maybe hundreds of millions of clock cycles before you might do your secure boot, if you will. But it can be done in software, and certain vendors are already offering this on their secure MCUs as software. However, for efficiency, power efficiency, time, latency, hardware acceleration is always preferred. But there's another aspect, and that's what we call side channel attacks. Through either power analysis or probing EM emittance, we already seen that classical crypto has been vulnerable, where you could just, let's call it, listen to the CMOS nodes switching, and with enough time, one could basically regenerate the used key. And one thing that these new algorithms do not solve is the resistance against side channel attacks. So that's where hardware is mandatory. If the threat model of the design or the use case where these algorithms end up in say, well, hey, this is an attack model that we need to protect against, then hardware is mandatory.
Are we simply changing the encryption methods that we're using and all the other protocols like public key exchange are remaining the same? Or are there other changes that are involved as well?
There are other changes. The specific new algorithms, I think there could be categorized in three. One is a new digital signature protocol with underlying algorithms, so slightly changes in the protocol. One is a so-called key encapsulation mechanism, the whole idea of basically generating keys and then making sure that, similar to the classical public key infrastructure, that you can send the public value over, and those mechanisms, they are slightly changed to be using the quantum algorithms. And then there is also a new methodology of firmware validation, where you could for your secure boot flow, you would validate your firmware autonomously by just booting, taking firmwares from flash, and before actually allowing to boot, do a secure firmware validation mechanisms. So these are all similar, but not identical.
Oh, very good. It looks like we have a lot to look forward to, and there's a lot that people are going to want to be talking to Rambus about right now. So thank you very much.